A few seasons ago, it looked like the Grizzlies had one of the brightest futures in the entire NBA. Ja emerged as a legit superstar, Jaren Jackson Jr. became one of the best defenders in the NBA, and they had a young, exciting supporting cast. Then they lost all of that last season. Of course, Ja was suspended, everybody was injured, but now it looks like they're back.
I mean, if you take out last season where basically just everything went wrong, they were a really solid young team on the rise that got the second seed. And sure, they haven't really had any playoff success, but with Ja back and healthy, a good supporting cast around him, wide open Western Conference, who knows what the Grizzlies could do this year.
Before we start talking about how the Memphis Grizzlies are back, please give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on any new videos. We'll keep this part pretty brief. We just made a video about the Grizzlies going into this season, but we do want to just quickly recap the crazy past few seasons. Of course, 2022 breakout year. They did feel like pretenders to me this entire season, but to be fair, they were a super young team, won 56 games, get their first playoff series win since the grit and grind Grizzlies era. Shameless plug for our retrospective. Check that out.
This video is sponsored by us.
Yes.
Our old stuff that we've made.
They eventually followed the Warriors in the second round, but it looked like they had one of the brightest futures in the league. 2023 didn't quite go as well. Controversies with Ja, Dylan Brooks for some reason poking the bear.
A turbulent season, to say the least. You got the bus incident with the laser pointer, Ja and the guns, like Dylan Brooks talking to LeBron and then skipping the press conferences after he loses. You get beat by 40 in game 6 on the road in LA. It wasn't full-blown panic time at the end of the season, but it felt like a very large bump in the road for this team.
And then you let Dylan Brooks walk. I mean, the writing was on the wall there. You acquire Marcus Smart in that 3-team deal. Hasn't really worked out. Like, I got the logic. You want to bring in a guy who can keep that defensive identity, who can help mentor Ja, was on those Celtics teams that were very good, but he's been hurt a lot. He's making too much money for his production, but I get the move.
It's still got time too.
Yeah, give it some time. We'll see what happens the rest of the season. Then Ja has another gun incident. He's suspended 25 games. Like we said, there's all these injuries. I mean, just based off of the vibe of the past 2 seasons, I wasn't super high on them going into this year. I thought, like, you know, 5th, 16th, like they'd be back in the thick of things, but I wasn't expecting like back to the 2nd seed in the West.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is when you're not around, we tend to like forget about you and how good you are. But my fear for this team was like, they're going to be the Pacers after Paul George broke his leg, right? You know, they lose some key pieces from the prior core that got far in the playoffs, won a bunch of games, and they kind of just regressed to a good, not great team. That was my fear for them. But in the draft, fair play to them. They had a phenomenal draft. Took Zach Edey with the 9th pick. I was never really high on Edey. I thought he was just a really good college player. Like, he kind of reminded me of, like, you know, a Frank Kaminsky.
Yeah.
A guy who's in college for 4 years. He's great in college. He leads his team on a deep run through the NCAA tournament, but he's just a good college player who's going to be a guy in the NBA. And so far, he has been a lot more than a guy.
I mean, I was worried about, like, would he be able to guard dudes on the perimeter? And obviously that's not his specialty, but he's been more mobile than I would have thought. Dude has kind of knocked down some threes as well. Hasn't taken a ton, but in the ones he has, he's been hitting them.
Which is perfect. There's no reason for a 7'4" guy to be hanging out at the 3-point line.
Yeah. And then they got the steal of the draft. Jalen Wells out of Washington State with a 39th pick. He's 2nd in points per game for rookies. The dude comes out of nowhere. Even us Pacific Northwest dudes barely knew who this dude was.
You mean barely? We had no clue who this guy was.
Hey, I was rooting for Washington State to win the Pac-12 last year because Oregon State, Washington State were sticking together. So I picked them to make a deep run the tournament. So I remember hearing his name once or twice. But yeah, we really didn't know who this dude was. He's been a very good shooter, maybe the best shooter in the draft. Of course, Jared McCain and Dalton Connect also get shout outs for that, but very good shooter, capable defender, pretty good on that end so far. So Grizzlies may have found a diamond in the rough, but besides that, it was a pretty quiet offseason. You re-signed Luke Kennard a 1-year deal. You add Jay Huff as a 2-way player. They were mainly banking on these guys coming back, being healthy, and getting back to that status they were in 2022 and 2023.
Yeah, and the Grizzlies this year feels like the same team from the past couple years when they were really good, just some minor differences. Big shout out has to go to Jaren Jackson Jr. though, who last year kind of was forced to expand his offensive game with, Ja not around, Desmond Bane missing half the season. He's leading them in scoring, averaging 22 points a night, hasn't scored less than 12, still obviously an elite defender. Ja's back and he's showing some flashes of that superstar we all remember. He's still ramping up. You can tell the Grizzlies are taking their time with him. And honestly, this is one of the things that is great about the Grizzlies and how deep they are. Like, they're not having to put him out there for 35, 40 minutes a night. Like, he's only playing like 27 minutes a night, which when you're trying to come back from injury is a great thing.
I mean, I still do worry about his health. He had that hip injury against the Lakers, had a knee contusion. He's only played in like half their games.
You always got to worry about the health of a guy that attacks the rim with such reckless abandon as Ja does.
Yeah, but that's why you got Scottie Pippen Jr. He's taking that Tyus Jones role. He can come in off the bench, facilitate, score a bit, or he can start with Ja being out. So breakout season for him when I thought like this dude was just a Nepo hire, basically. Santi Aldama is continuing to improve his scoring. He can drop 20 every once in a while. He just did it against the Pelicans. And then of course we mentioned Zach Edey and Jalen Wells. So overall 7 players average double figures, 10 players averaging 8.5 points or more. A ton of players get minutes. They're one of the deepest teams in the NBA.
Yeah, and like I was mentioning, Ja doesn't have to play a lot, plays like 27 minutes a game. Their leader in minutes per game is Jaren Jackson, who plays 28 minutes a game, which is, it's perfect. Like, this was what the Spurs did back in the day. You got a deep team, you can rest your stars, they're ready for the playoffs, like, you can ease guys back in through injury. They got like Jay Huff coming in having a breakout season. I do to just start as a two-way player, shot the ball so well, they gave him a 4-year deal. They gave a G League guy on a 2-way contract, a 4-year Has that ever happened before?
I don't know, but when you're 7-1 and you can shoot the lights out, you lock that dude up early.
Exactly. You still got Luke Kennard, who's a great shooter. And the thing that's kind of scary about the Grizzlies is like, they're not getting supreme production yet from Ja or Desmond Bane. Like, Desmond Bane especially is in a big time shooting slump. He's averaging 10 less points per game than he did last year. Now, part of that, like I said earlier, he's not playing as much as he did last year. He's not shooting as much as he did, but his percentages are way down. If he can get that efficiency back up to where he was last year, if Ja can get his efficiency back up to where it's been in years prior, and Jaren Jackson's playing like he is on offense, team could get even better.
Yeah, they're already on a 5-game winning streak at the time of this recording with those dudes not going off. We're assuming it's going to be 6 if they beat the Pacers on Sunday.
Yeah, if it's not 6, this video is never going to come out. And you're going to get something. You're going to get something about how the Wizards lost every game in November.
But like, they're playing this well with those dudes not going off. Like, get them going. You said it. They're very dangerous. So the question is, can this team actually come out of the West? Can they win the conference? Obviously, it's way too early to tell. And right now, it's tough to say definitively another team can do it besides OKC, because OKC, besides, I guess, Chet getting injured, has basically no weakness.
Yeah, OKC is like the one team in the top 8 of the West where you can look at them and be like, they could survive like a big catastrophe.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like every team 7 through 8, one big thing goes wrong and they're kind of out of the championship hunt, you know?
Yeah, Chet's out right now and they're still doing just fine. But the Grizzlies have been great. I don't want to rain on their parade, but we do got to mention 13 of their first 21 games have been at home. They've been very good at home, but they got some road trips coming up. And then they have the toughest remaining schedule in the NBA. So things are going to get tougher, but with the depth they got, if John Desmond Bane can get back to where we saw them in the past, I don't know, the Grizzlies could be super dangerous. And with the experience they have from past years, Jaren Jackson Jr. expanding his game on offense, they could make the conference finals and who knows, even come out the West.
But this is how great the Western Conference is. They could also go out in the first round.
Yeah.
I mean, my pick before the year, Minnesota, they're on the ropes right now. So I'm not going to make a pick. I guess I'll just stick with Minnesota because it's super early.
Okay.
I'm just going to believe in Anthony Edwards. I mean, Doc's turned the Bucks around. Like,
I guess
if the Bucks can figure it out a little bit, I'm going to have faith in the Wolves to figure it out a little bit. But the Grizzlies, it's just another team you don't want to see in the playoffs.
So what do you guys think? Are you buying into the Grizzlies, or is it just too early to tell in this stacked Western Conference? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving a like. And hey, while you're here, check out some of our other videos as well. And don't forget to subscribe to Synthetic Sports.